Yeah, welcome once again. This is Code with Kamate. Today we shall be building an authentication system that is registering users, allowing users to log into the system and accessing the dashboard. We shall be using Python, majorly Django as a framework, and we shall be styling using CSS. And our pages will be built, of course, using HTML. So before we dive into the coding part of the system, we need to first understand what is authentication in the first 2 to 3 minutes. Then we start building our project. So authentication is the process of verifying a user's identity before granting them access to a system. So before anyone accesses a system, that person has to first be verified to check whether qualifies to see the information you want to display to the person. For example, if someone is accessing a dashboard, you have to first confirm whether the person is logged in before he or she can access the dashboard. So why do we authenticate? Normally, we do that to protect sensitive data, prevent unauthorized access, build user trust, and it also enables personalization. Many applications out there, normally they use these authentication systems like banking apps. No one can just log into your banking app. You need a PIN, that is a login code. Social media, the same thing, and also the e-commerce platforms. So in the Django, we always have an authentication system that is built in. It's the one we shall be dealing with today. It handles login, logout, and login sessions. And on the other thing, it also helps us to integrate it with templates and views. So the login and logout, like if a user logs in, the user logs in by entering a username and password. Then if it is verified that those information matches the information in the system or in the database, then the access is granted. And the other thing is that we shall be able to have a personalized dashboard. Normally, like if someone has logged in, the dashboard will be more of personal information. So the information I can access when I'm logged in differs from the information another person can access. So it also allows us to grant access to restricted contents. Yeah, so authentication is very important because it helps us to ensure that our systems are very secure. So without taking a lot of time, let's dive into creating our Django app, and then we start dealing with the coding part. So keep on, let's go for session 2. So right now I'm in VS Code with the Kamate folder open. It is a folder on a desktop which I've just created. So this one is where we're going to store all our files. So let's open up a terminal, and we create a virtual environment where we're going to be downloading different packages that we shall need in our project. So to open up a virtual environment, we run this command, Python mvenv, that is virtual environment, followed by the virtual environment name. I'm going to call it env. So now our virtual environment is created, as you can see. So let us activate the virtual environment by navigating to env, which is the folder name, then scripts /activate and press enter. So our virtual environment is now activated, so we can now install the Django. We install the Django from pip install the Django, then press enter. So the Django is successfully installed. Now we can now start our project. So since we have installed the Django, we can now be able to run the Django commands. So let's press Ctrl L to clear the terminal. And now let's run the Django admin start project. And this project, I'm going to call it my site main. Then I add a dot to create it in the current folder. Make sure your virtual environment is activated. Press enter. So the other thing we need to do is to run the migrate command so that the default database tables can be created. Because after running the migrate command, we have to get those default database tables where we can be storing the users, including the super user. Okay, so we do that by running python manage.py. So we're using manage.py because now we have access to it. It has been created when we started the project. So python manage.py migrate. So when we run the migrate command, it is going to create those default database tables. And also the other thing is that we have to also create a super user. So a super user is going to help us access the admin panel. If you are not understanding these commands, check out my link in there is a video I made previously explaining what each of these files does and what each of these means in details. So the link is in the description. So from here, let's create now a super user. Okay, by running python manage.py create super user, and then we press enter. Username, create a username, then email address, put a valid email. Sorry. Then password, create a strong password. So the super user is now successfully created. Okay, so since we now have the super user, we are now going to run the server to see how our project looks like in the browser, or to see if everything is fine. So we do that by running python manage.py run server. Okay, so it is running on this port. Let us open this implement server. Let's open it in our browser and we see. Wow, so the install works successfully, meaning that everything is fine for our Django project. The other thing, let us access the admin panel and we see. So let us check the admin panel. So let us log in. Use the username we created and the password from the super user account. Wow, good. So we are now able to log in. So everything is working fine in our Django project. So the next thing we are going to do right now, we are going to update this home page of ours. So it shouldn't display the install worked successfully. It should display something that we need. Remember, this is an authentication system. So we're going to create a page with register and login buttons, a simple page. Then we shall configure both the buttons, the register button and the login button, so that they are working very, very fine. So to start with, we have to go and configure urls.py, because every request that comes from the browser does go to the urls.py. So we are going to configure the home page and then we render a HTML document to fill up here. So let's do that. We shall head over directly to our urls.py here. Let me collapse the terminal. And then under path URL patterns, so we have one path. This path here is for the admin. It does help us to access the admin dashboard, as we saw. So we're going to create another path down here, and this path is going to be a path of empty strings. So empty strings means the home page. Okay, then this one will be handled by views.homepage. Okay, yeah, it will be handled by views.homepage, and let us give it the name of homepage. You can give it any name, but for my case, I'm calling it homepage. So now it means that in views we have to create a function called homepage, so that when a request comes for the homepage will be handled by that function called homepage, which will be within the views. However, we don't have views within our files here, so we shall create views.py, and then you have to import it up here. Okay, so from the current folder, import views. So we create views and then we define this function. Okay, so we create a file here called views.py, and then under views.py we define a function called homepage, and this function will always take a request. Okay, and then it should return. We are going to use the render function to render a template. So render is a function that takes the request and also takes in the HTML document. So I'm going to call it homepage.html. Yeah. So however, we have to import render, because render is a function. If you don't import it, you can get errors. So you have to import it from Django.shortcuts. Okay, so from the Django.shortcuts, import render. Okay, so after we have imported render, we are now good to go. So we have to create a file called homepage.html. So this file should be created in a folder. I have to create a folder here where we shall be storing our templates. So we can first collapse all this, then we create a folder on this main directory. We create a folder and we call it templates. And under this folder called templates, it's here we're going to create our file called homepage.html. Okay, like this. And this homepage.html, we can come here and we change the Django template to HTML language so that we can access different HTML shortcuts, like accessing the boilerplate using an exclamation mark. And then here, let me just put something like H2. This is the home page. So let's try to run. Wait, before you run, you have to make sure that you go to settings.py and specify where templates are found. So in my site, settings.py, under templates, where there is dirs, we have to specify that our templates and the templates folder. Okay, so when you do that, that's when everything is gonna work fine. So from here, we can now go to our browser and we check out whether the home page is working. Let's refresh this. Oh wow, so our home page is working very fine. So what we have to do, we now have to update this home page so that we can create a good page with the register and the login buttons. So let's do that quickly. Let's go back to our homepage.html, and then we're going to remove the whole of this code. So I have already prepared a homepage.html file, and you can find the link in the description to download it. Yeah, because our aim here, we're going to learn how to handle the back end, so we cannot create the whole HTML file from scratch. It can take a lot of time, yet we need to handle the logic for register and login and the dashboard. So I already have it created, and therefore I'm going to drop it here. So you can also get it and download it so that you can also catch up. So it is this one here. I will paste it. Wow, good. So after pasting it, I'll make some edits, especially on these links, because we don't have these URLs at the moment. So if we run it, it can crash. So let's remove this. Let's remove these ones. Okay. I think even this one. Good. So I hope this one has to work fine. Let us first check in the browser, refresh. Okay, good. So this is our beautiful home page. Okay, this is our beautiful home page. So we shall not mind much about the design or maybe making it look more fine. I will just have to mind about making the register button to work and the login button and how someone can access the dashboard. So in the next few minutes, we're going to be making this register button to be functional. Okay, so we are now going to create an app that is going to handle users who register and those ones who have to log into the system. So to create another app, open up our terminal. Opening a terminal, you can use Ctrl J for those of on Windows, or you can use the normal way of clicking here and then you select new terminal. So we are going to run Python manage.py start app, and this app I'm going to call it users. Press enter. Make sure your virtual environment is activated. Good. So let me collapse this. As you can see, we now have users. So we have users app. So it is within users that you're going to manage all the other configurations concerning users. So it is always encouraged to have different apps managing different things onto your Django project. Yeah, that one helps us, especially when we get bugs and we are debugging. It helps us to know where the error is easily. So having created the users app, so the next thing you're going to do, you're going to create a URL pattern for registering. So the first thing we have to do after I've created an app, we have to register it. Okay, the app is called users, so you have to go to settings.py in our main app, and then we scroll down to install the apps. Install the apps, then down here where we add users. Yeah, so after we have added users app, now the next thing we need to do, we need now to configure URLs. So remember that all URLs that come from all requests that come from the web browser, they normally come to this main urls.py, the one which has the settings.py. So we have to configure a URL that states that if someone, let's create it, path, then open brackets. So now for any URLs that starts with users like this, okay, that starts with users, because that is the users app. So any URLs that starts with users should be handled by views dot should include users dot URLs. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that for all the URLs starting with users, then they have to be handled by users.urls. However, we have to also import include, because include is a function. We have to import it. It comes from the Django.urls. That's why even you can see that it is it has this red kind of. So we have to also include it like that. Okay. So it has to include users.urls like this. Okay, so having done that, we can now be able to configure the URLs within users. So the first thing is to handle the register button. So normally we need, when someone clicks on register, it should open up a registration form. Okay, let us first design that. So any URLs that starts with users slash register. Okay, so that starts with the users slash register should automatically be able to take us to the register, to the register page, a form where someone can register. Okay, so currently we don't have that page. Okay, so let us now configure that in our urls.py. So we are now going to go to users. Remember, in users we don't have urls.py as a file, so I have to create one, urls.py like this, and you press enter. Then within here we are going now to create URL patterns. Okay, so we shall need to import path. Okay, we shall need to import path. So you can just copy this first, and then we go to URLs under users, and then we paste it here. So we shall need the path for creating the URL patterns, and also we shall need to import views because we shall be using the views here to render different templates. Okay, so these ones you might remove them. So now let us start by creating a path. Even we don't need admin. So let's create a path. So the first path is going to be register. Okay, so the register path should be handled by views.register, and the name, let me call it register. Okay, wow, so this is very fine. Okay, so now which means that we have to go to the views of the users app and we create a function called register. Okay, so at under views.py, let's create a function called register, and this function is going to take a request and is going to return render. Remember, render is also a function. It's going to return render, which will take the request and also take the register.html. Okay, then we're going to pick out this register.html and we create its file in our templates folder. Templates is here, so we create another file called register.html, and we can change its language here. We can change it to HTML so that we can be able to access the different shortcuts in HTML. Then as you can see, let's create here heading 2, and we say this is the registration page. Okay, this is the registration page. So let's run the server again. Python manage.py run server. Good. So let us refresh this page. So users/register. Let's refresh this page and we see. Good. So this is the registration page. It is working very fine. So the other thing we need to do, we have to link this homepage, the homepage of ours. Let me open up this one, view site, and open in a new tab. So we have to link this register button so that when we click on register button, it should automatically take us to this page. Okay, then after we shall format this page by rendering a form. So what we have to do right now, we have to go to this home page and we look for this register button, and then we link it to the register URL. Okay, so if you check very well, our URL name, the name we gave to our register is the register. Okay, so let us copy this and then we go to our homepage.html, and then we look for where we have the register. You can even press Ctrl F to find register is here. Okay, fine. So you see this is the anchor tag for linking. So in here, linking in the Django, normally we do use these curly braces like this, then percentage. So this is the syntax for linking in the Django. Then you put URL, then you put the URL name in quotes. So the URL name is register. Okay, which means that clicking on register will be handled by this one here. Okay, so let us go the other side and we check. Make sure you save. Let's refresh this home page. Okay, it has refreshed. So let's click on register. Wow, so it automatically brings us to the registration page. That is very fine. Now the next thing we need to do, we need to change this registration page so that it renders out a form. So in the Django, normally what happens is there are two ways of rendering out a form. There is manual form creation, and also there is using the inbuilt Django form for registering users. Okay, so in our project we are going to use the most common way, which is using the built-in Django forms to manage users like registrations. Okay, that's why when you access the admin panel, let's refresh it. When you access the admin panel, we do have users, and when you go onto users and maybe you want to add a user, okay, you are going to find in a built-in Django form for adding a user, username, password confirmation, all that. Also, there are other fields in there, like when you click on this user called admin, we can see username, password, first name, last name, email, is active, that is the active status, staff status, super user status, all that. Okay, so I think we even have last login and this join. So this is the form which is built within the Django. So you're going to render this form, but not all the fields. You shall render a few of the fields. We render them into our document. So to start with, let's go back to our VS Code. Let's close this. Let's close all, and then let's minimize this. Okay, good. So the first thing we need to do, we need to create the registration form. So we have a special module that handles forms in the Django, which is called forms.py. So under users, we're going to create forms.py. Okay, that one handles all issues concerning forms. Okay, forms.py, like this. So having created forms.py, we are now going to access the registration form. So how do we do that? The first thing we have to do is to create a class. So this class, we're going to give it a name. We can call it registration form, or you can call it anything. Let me call it user registration. No, let me just call it registration form. Okay, so now this form, the registration form, is going to take up the user registration form for the Django. So the Django does have that built-in down I've just seen, is called user registration form. Okay, user registration form. Okay, so it is going to take up that one. However, this one we have to import it. We have to import this one from, okay, let me import it from here up. So from the Django dot contrib from the Django dot contrib dot auth dot forms import user actually it is user creation form. Yeah, user creation form. Okay, sorry for that simple mistake. User creation form. Okay, yeah, so it has to take in the user creation form, which we have now imported up here. So after it has done that, which means this is the user creation form, it contains all of these fields. There are fields we've been seeing over here, so it contains all of these fields. So now this form comes from a module. We have to create a class called meta. Meta is a simple class which we use when we want to give different settings to our main class. So it is a subclass of the main class, major for giving settings, like where is this form coming from. The user creation form is coming from the user module. Okay, it's coming from the user module, and the user module we have to also import it. We have to import the user module from, okay, fine, let's import it up here. So actually almost the same. From the django.contrib.auth.models, import the user model like this. Okay, so now we have the user model imported. Then from there, as I have said, the user model has very many fields. Okay, it has all these fields, there are very many. So we are going to pick up some of the fields. So we're going to pick the username, the password, and maybe first name and last name. Those ones that will be enough for our registration form. Though if you want, you can also have all these fields, brought up. Okay, so for us, we're going to go with fields, and these fields, you open up a tuple, and we are going to have first name, last name, then username, and then the other thing is password. So password, normally we have password, then confirm password. So the first password you enter in the Django, it is known as password 1. Then the other one for confirming is password 2. Okay, so that is the only thing we need. So we now have our fields. So after we have our form like this, the next thing we are going to do, we have to now render this form in our views. Okay, so let us check out the urls.py. So remember, we say we already have the register function created in the views, which is going to handle that. So let's go to views.py. Then we have the register. Now this register, we are going to add in here. We're going to add in a form. Okay, we're going to create a form. So we're going to import this form which I've just created up here, so that it is available in our views. Then we render it in the template. So the form is called registration form. Let's copy that name, and then we come to views. Then we call it registration form, and then we call it. Okay, so we are calling it up here. Then after doing so, we have to also import this because it is not imported. That's why they're underlining it. We have to import it from the current folder. Okay, from .forms. Okay, from, even if you remove users, it is not important. Okay, good. So from that is from the current folder in the forms module here, import registration form, which we are now rendering here. Good. However, this form is not yet available into our template. As you can see, it is not available in our template. And now, to make it available in our template, because it is where we want to render it, we have to create what we call a context. Okay, a context is going to be a dictionary containing all those variables that we need to push to our HTML. So here, for our case, it is form. So form. So this means that this is the form is down stored in the database, and it is going to be used in the template as form. Okay, good. So we now pass this context into the render function. So we now already have access to this form in our HTML. So when you go to register.html, which is here, register.html, let us remove this code. Okay, we can even leave this code, and then maybe this one we call it user registration, and then heading 2 can be user registration. Good. And then here we can now create a form. We can create a form. Okay, just a second. Let us change this to HTML so that we are able to access all those HTML shortcuts. HTML like this. So let us now create a form. Okay, so form with a method of post. Okay, post method, hope you know some HTML. Post method means that this form will be sending data to the database, because we have the get and the post. Post is for sending data into the database, whereas get is for fetching data from the database. So after I have created that action, we shall add the action later. In the Django, when you are creating a form that is sending data into the database, we have what we call the CSRF token. This one is used to verify information before it is sent to the database. Okay, so it is used to verify the information before it can go to the database. So in case maybe someone is sending a form and it is incomplete, it will not be able to be sent. So after that, we can now render our form. So in the Django, when we want to render a form, remember in our context, we use the form. Okay, if you can remember very well, in our views, we use the form. Okay, so this is the very word we have to use here in our template, but we have to use double curly braces. Okay, then we put form. So this is going to render the form automatically. Let us check if that works or not. Let me check if my server is running while it is running. So let's refresh. Let's refresh this /register and we see. Wow, good. So this is the registration form. Okay, we have the first name, last name, username. We have the password. Okay, everything is now set very well. Okay, that is it. Let me check if everything is linking well. Let's go to the home page. So at the home page, clicking on register automatically brings us to the user registration. So in the next few minutes, we're going to be formatting this form to look a bit nice, but we shall not do a lot of formatting. We shall just do a little formatting, and then we handle the back end now for the form. But meanwhile, let me add the submit button. We need a button here for submitting this form. Okay, so button of submit here. Good. And I can say register. Okay, let's refresh this and we see. Good. So shall I be doing the formatting in the next few minutes, then we handle the logic for registering. Okay. All right, so now let us format this. So there are two ways of formatting a form in the Django. The first way is using the normal formatting of CSS, but the best way of formatting forms in the Django. So one is formatting all these fields from this model here by creating widgets. That is one. Then the other thing, since for us we don't need the large formatting, we just need simple formatting for our form to look a bit nice. We are going to use what we call the Django Crispy forms and the Bootstrap 4 to have our forms formatted. Okay, so that is the simplest way of formatting, but in the bigger projects we normally format these fields either using the widgets here by defining each field. You define that is a text field or this and this within these forms, or sometimes implementing other libraries like Tailwind. Okay, so for us we are going to use the simplest way, of which let me stop the server, of which it involves using the Django Crispy forms. So how do we do that? So that one, we have to install the Crispy forms and also install the Crispy Bootstrap. Okay, so let us install them. Pip install the Django Crispy forms, and we're also wanting to install Crispy Bootstrap 4. So make sure that here we are using these dashes, not underscores. Okay, we are not using underscores, so most people make that mistake and things fail to run. Okay, so let's press enter. So they are now installed. So after installing them, we have to add them to installed apps in our settings.py. So let's head over to settings.py, and under installed apps we are going to add the Crispy forms, open quotes, Crispy forms. So here we're using underscore, take note of that, Crispy forms, and we are also adding in Crispy Bootstrap. Okay, we are adding in Crispy Bootstrap 4. So you have to make sure that here you are using underscores. Okay, put a comma here at the end. Then also you have to tell the Django where it will be looking for the Bootstrap to format. So that's why we create another variable here, Crispy template pack. Okay, so I create Crispy template pack, and we give it a value of bootstrap 4. Okay, so we give it bootstrap 4, and here we are good to go. So after we have done all this, we now have to go to our register where we need to format, and just up here above the form we load the crispy forms. Okay, so we have to load crispy forms tags. Okay, so we load crispy forms tags, and then here on this form I will put a pipe, and then we put crispy. Okay, this is how we do the formatting. Okay, so let us check our server if it is running. Had stopped the server. Let me run the server again. Okay, so the server is running. So let us go to our browser and refresh. We see if the formatting has been attached. Let's refresh the page. Okay, yeah, some formatting has been put. Yeah, small one, but I know it's fine because our major emphasis is handling the back end, the logic for registering. So this one is fine for now. But later you can still go ahead and format it the way you want it to be formatted. So having done that, we now want, if someone enters in their details, okay, if someone enters in their details and the passwords, okay, everything, the username, the password, okay, and they click on the register button, okay, this information should be sent to the database. Okay, so the information should be sent to the database, and then after the information being sent to the database, when we come here in the admin panel under users, we should be able to see the list of those information submitted here. Okay, so that is what we want to handle right now. So the first thing we have to do, we have to, our form is using the request, the method of post. Okay, so what you have to do, let's go to views.py. Now up here on the top, we are rendering this form only and only if there is no action that has been taken. However, if the request, okay, dot method, okay, the request dot method is equal to post, okay, that is the first thing you have to handle. If the request dot method is equal to post, which means that the information is being sent to the database. So what should we do? We now have to get the form. Okay, we can equate it to our registration form. Here. Then this registration form is coming in with post. Sorry, is coming in with request dot post. Okay, so what does this mean? All the information that a user has entered from this form here, from this form is always under request dot post. Okay, so that is why it is always held. So when the method is post, then we get now that information, and then after getting them, what we have to do, we have to check if this form is valid. Okay, if form dot is valid, so when the form is valid, what should we do? We have to save that form. Okay, we have to save the form, and then after saving the form, what should we do? We should send the user to log in, but for now we don't have the login page. So right now, after they have registered, we can send them to the home page. So we return and redirect. Okay, we redirect the user to the home page. So let us check the name we gave to the home page, this side, and our URLs home page. It is home page. Okay, so let's get back to our views. So we return them to the home page. Okay, but we have to import redirect. We have to import redirect from the Django.shortcuts. Okay, import redirect. So it is there now imported. So that is it. So which means that if a user registers, the information should be saved, and after being saved, they should be returned to the home page. Let us go to check if that one is working fine or not. Let's check our server. Our server is running good. So let us refresh this page. So let us register. For example, let me just register someone here. The username, I can just use KMT123. Password, so create a strong password, otherwise the Django will throw it out. Create a strong password, and then let us also put password confirmation. So now clicking on register button, we have forgot to set up something small here within the register. What we have to know is that the form action, we have not set it. So the action is the one which is going to give the direction, what should happen. Okay, so that's why we have to put in the URL, okay, which is handling that. It is URL of register. So it is the one that is bringing about these views here, not so. It's the one that is bringing about these views. So let us now click on register, and we see register. Good. So we have been taken to the home page, and as you can see, these are the usernames. So when we check in our the Django admin, and then we refresh the page, we shall find a new user here. So email address, we don't have that field. Okay, so that's how we can handle registration. So in the next video, we are going to handle the user login, because after someone has registered, should be directed to the login page, and then from the login page, that's when they can be able to access the dashboard. So the registration is working very fine. So let us now handle the login in the next few minutes. So now let us go forward. So now we need, when someone clicks on login, a login form should open, and then someone should be able to log into the system. So to start with, we have to configure the URL for logging into the system. Okay, so that is slash users/login. Okay, so this one should be able to take us to the login page. Okay, so but currently, of course, we don't have the page, so we have to first go and configure this out in our urls.py. Okay, so let me head over to urls.py, and then we create another path here. Let's create a path, and this path we're going to call it login slash, and it will be handled by views.login, and we shall give it a name of login. Okay, so having created this, we now have to render a template in our views.py. So we have to create a function called login, and then that is our views.py here. Define login, and it will take a request, and it will return. Let us use the render. Render is a function that takes up the request, and also HTML login.html. This one should be in quotes. Don't forget that, like this. Good. So let us now create our login.html, which we are going to render under templates. So we're going to create login.html here, and then we can just, oh sorry, this is L, login.html. Let me confirm if views is doing the same. So our views has HTML. Yes, good. So our login.html, let us change this into HTML so that we can access the different shortcuts. And then let us have the boilerplate. Okay, good. So we can call this one user login. Then here we can just create something like this is the login page to test out if everything is fine. And then what else do you have to do? So our views.py, yes, is handling it. So let us see if it is working. Let us refresh this page. Good. This is our login page. Okay. So since it is now working, we just have to go to the home page and we link the login button to this page. And also we have to make sure that when someone registers, goes to the home page. So let us quickly do that before we can handle the design and then the logic. So let us first handle the homepage.html. Let us go to login is here. So login, you're going to create a link. Okay, we're going to link it to URL called login. Okay, then in our views under register, where we are returning homepage, after we have saved the form, we should not return them to the login page. Okay, so let us refresh this. Let's go to the home page and we see. Good. So login. Good. So now let us go and we design the login page. So we're going to also make a simple design. So you can just say user login, and then you can create a form with a method post. Okay, with a method post and action. We shall put action. Action, you're gonna put the action later. And now you can also create a button here. A button, a submit button called login. Yes, this is fine. Let us try to refresh and we see. Good. So this is fine. And now we are going now to bring about the views now. So with the login, as we did in register, we had to first go to create a form. However, I will have an inbuilt login form. Remember when we were trying to log into our admin panel, let us try to log in again. Let me log out and log in again. So you see, we already have username and password. So before someone logs in, normally has to be having the username and the password. So this form is called authentication form and it is built within the Django. So what we have to do when we are dealing with the login page, because we have to render that form. Okay, so that form we're going to import it from the Django.contrib .contrib .auth .forms. So import authentication form. Okay, so the authentication form is a form which looks like this one, the one containing username and password. So after we have imported this, we can be able to render it here in our template by creating a variable form, and we assign it to authentication form. Okay, and then we pass it into the context so that it is available in our HTML document. So form, this has to be in quotes. Good, and put a comma here. So let us pass the context here so that it is a variable. Then when you go to login.html, we should now be able to find out the form when we render it, just as like we did. We also have to load the tags so that it can be formatted somehow well. So we have to load the crispy tags. Load crispy forms tags. Okay, then you have to pipe this with crispy. Okay, so let's refresh Okay, let's refresh this. User login, refresh. Good. So we have the username and password. Okay, the formatting is not okay, but for purposes of us just handling the logic, we can leave it the way it is. But normally, when you are making a real world application, as we shall be seeing in the future, yeah, you have to make sure that everything is formatted very well. So having seen this, so now we need to handle now this. So when a user enters in their username and the password, what should happen? That one will automatically come to the views. Okay. Then when here in the views, the first thing you have to check is if the request dot method is equal to post. That is the first thing. Okay, request dot method should be equal to post. If the request dot method is equal to post, then we can now pick our authentication form. Okay, can copy this. So we are picking the data that is coming from these two fields. Okay, from both the username and the password. So request, then request dot post. So now here we are using request and request.post, whereas in registration we had only request.post. This is because when we are logging in, you have different ways of logging into a system. Sometimes you can log in using cached data or using tokens. So where you find that when you want to log in, you just click login and you automatically get logged in. So that is common to most systems. That's why either data can be stored in those cookies and cached data, or can be coming directly from these two fields, the request.post. So that's why we do so. However, with registration, we cannot have data cached from somewhere. No. That's why here we have request and request.post. So after I've received this form with request and request.post, we now have to check if the form is valid. Okay, if form dot is valid, if the form is valid, what should we do? If the form is valid, we cannot save it because we need people to log in. So what we have to do, we have to pick the username and the password. Okay, so we are going to get the username, and then we get form dot. We have a method called cleaned data. Okay, clean data, then open parenthesis. Okay, we are getting the username. So where do we get this username? This username, if you come to view the page source for this login page by pressing Ctrl U, and you check for username here, you can see that the username, the input type is text, the name is username. Okay, so the name to that field is username, whereas the name for the password field is password. That's why when we are picking the data, we pick the field name, which is the username. Okay, so form.clean data username. We do the same for the password. I'll pick form.clean data, and we take up the password. Okay, so after we have the username and the password, so what else do we have to do? So in the Django, we have a function which helps us to authenticate. Okay, so it helps us to deal with the authentication of users. So that one is imported from Django.contrib.auth. Okay, so let us import it up here. So it is a function from the Django.contrib.auth. So we import authenticate. Okay, so import authenticate to help us authenticate the users. So after we have gotten the username and password, we can now create a variable called user. Okay, we can just call it a user, or maybe something. Okay, a user. Now we call the authenticate function. Okay, we call the authenticate function. So the authenticate function is to just help us confirm if the username from the data matches the username in the database. So here we shall have username should be equal to the username. Okay, username entered here should be equal to the username in the database, and the password entered from here which you have collected should be equal to the password in the database. Okay, so after we have done this, we now have authenticated the user. So we have to confirm whether this user exists. Okay, the user has to be existing in the database. If the user is existing, then we can log in. So if user is not none, okay, if user is not none, that means the user exists. Okay, so what should we do if the user is not none? So we return redirect. Redirect is a function, and we can redirect this user to the dashboard, but we don't have dashboard right now, so we can just direct to the home page first, then we shall change later to the dashboard. Okay, so that is it. Let us try to check and we see if this is gonna run out. Let me check if my server is still running. Yes, it is running. So let me register a user. So let me refresh this. So for example, test1, then username. Let me set test1 still. Password, create a strong password, and then let us confirm the password here, and then we register. So clicking on register, as we linked, should take us to login. Okay, we are now at login. Let me save this. So let me now log in, and now this is test1, right? So logging in with test1 as we have just configured should take us to the home page. So let us log in and we see. If you go to the home page, then it will be successful. Forbidden is oh, okay, sorry. So you know, if the request is post, we have to put the CSRF verification. Okay, so that is something we just forgot. Let us add it in our login.html. Okay, just after the form here. Okay, CSRF token. Good. So let's go back. Let's refresh the page. Okay, let us reload the page, and then we log in with test1. Login. Good. So we have been able to log in, and we are now back to the dashboard. And now when you go into the admin panel and we log in, let me log in using the super user account, the one we created. I should be able to see the test1 user in the back end under users. Good. So we have test1 here. Okay, so that one has worked very well. So the other thing remaining, let's get back to our dashboard. So we already have our home, our register, and login. So login should take us to the dashboard. Okay, so let us just configure that faster. What the first thing we have to do is the URL for the dashboard. Okay, when someone slashes to dashboard, okay, this is what we want to configure first. We have to go to our URLs. Let me use the main site, because I don't want to see users/dashboard. I just want to see /dashboard directly. So I'm going to come to URLs here, and then I create a path. So this path should be dashboard / and should be handled by views dot sorry, let's remove this. Okay, should be handled by views dot dashboard, and the name should be dashboard. Okay, the name should be dashboard. So what else? Let us now create a function called dashboard in our views. So in our views, let's create a function called dashboard, which will take a request and it will return render. Let us render the request with dashboard.html. Okay, so you need to create dashboard.html quickly. In our templates, we just create a dashboard.html. Then we can change it from the Django template to HTML. Then we can assign this dashboard. So I'm doing it faster because I think we are now used to how to configure the URLs. So this one is gonna be, this is our dashboard. Okay, so we have to test it out, and then we have to go to the home page and we look for where I think no, we don't have dashboard on the home page. It is okay. Instead we have to go to the views for the login, such that after login you should be directed to the dashboard like this. Okay, so let's refresh this and we see dashboard. Okay, sorry, slash dashboard, press enter. Good. So right now what we have to do, let us now cross check if everything is working fine. So we shall start from the home page. So when a user goes to the home page like this and be able to register, so let me create an account. Let me use test2 username. Let me still use test2. Password, create a strong password, and then confirm the password. Then let's register. So after registering, we should be directed to the login page. Good. So let me save this. Then let's come to test2. Okay, this is test2. So when we log in, we should be taken to the dashboard. Okay. Wow, this is our dashboard, and now we can be able to design our dashboard. So this is it for now for the case of the authentication system, and thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.